If you're familiar with the OnePlus brand, you'll know that the OnePlus 6 and the OnePlus 6T are pretty much the same phone with a few changes here and there. I'll get into that. Personally for me, I prefer the 6 over the 6T. For you, it might be a different story. I'll share mine. I think the biggest misconception for people with the 6 and the 6T is that just because the 6T is newer means that it's automatically the better phone. And I can understand that because that's usually how these things go. But if you look at the specs, it's not that simple. And that's because both of these phones share a lot of the same guts. The same processor, a Snapdragon 845 chipset. They both have the option for 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of internal storage, the same cameras front and rear, the same super fast performance and UI, the same super fast battery charging that we've all come to know and love, a handy physical alert slider, and a competitive price. As for the changes, the 6T gets a little more display and a little less bezel. 6.28 inches versus 6.41 inches. You can see it here with a smaller redesigned notch, and you'll see less bezel at the bottom as well. The 6T also gets a tougher, more durable display, Gorilla Glass 5 versus Gorilla Glass 6, and a bigger battery, 3300 mAh versus 3700 mAh, which is always a plus in my book. Now, that bigger battery makes the 6T come in just a bit taller, just a bit wider, and just a bit heavier. But that shouldn't be a deal breaker. For me, the biggest change here, at least in my opinion, is the location of the fingerprint reader. The OnePlus 6 carries a physical fingerprint sensor in the rear, which is one of the fastest and most accurate fingerprint readers to date. Versus the 6T, OnePlus decided to implement newer technology which consists of a fingerprint sensor underneath the display. And while it works decently well, it isn't as fast and it isn't as accurate as my OnePlus 6 is. I've done things to make it better, like adding my thumbprint twice, and while it seems to help, it still doesn't match what the 6 offers me in terms of speed, accuracy, and reliability. So let's get back to the display. Now that the 6T has a smaller notch, they've also gotten rid of the LED notification light that's still present on the OnePlus 6, which silently alerts you to certain notifications depending on the color of that light. This is something I've used for years, and personally for me, I'm sad to see it go. And lastly, the headphone jack. It's gone for the 6T. A few weeks ago, I retweeted a post from Carl Pei, OnePlus's co-founder, and said, "This is so funny and disappointing half a year later." And that was in regards to Carl posting a poll asking, "Do you like headphone jacks 2018 edition?" And here we are at the end of 2018 with a OnePlus 6T with a nowhere to be seen headphone jack. Now, even though I use wireless earbuds, I still use my wired ones a lot. And I know if the phone I'm carrying has a headphone jack, a lot of times I just grab my wired earbuds and plug them in. With that being said, the OnePlus 6T is still an excellent phone. Impressive performance, a great battery and camera, and a clean UI at a hard to beat price. By the way, if you're looking for my in-depth thoughts on these cameras, I've done a ton of camera comparisons for the 6 and the 6T. I'll leave a couple links in the description. In my honest opinion, I would have appreciated if OnePlus waited at least another generation to implement its in-display fingerprint reader. And while it's not bad today, I know that it could have been better over time. I just don't think it was ready for prime time just yet. The loss of the LED notification light and the headphone jack are sore spots for me too. Instead, I would have been happy with the bigger battery upgrade, and maybe if they upgraded the haptic feedback, because honestly, the haptic feedback on the 6 and the 6T, they're really weak. They're mediocre at best. And maybe adding a second speaker by the earpiece. That would have been a nice touch. Maybe next year? Maybe?